What's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music, hanging out in Nashville. And I've got my good friend Mike Gannon here hanging out. And this is a video that is brought to you by D'Addario. So huge shout out and thank you to D'Addario for sponsoring this video. And we're going to use some various slides that D'Addario makes. And I am not, I know you're going to be shocked, I'm not a great slide player. I know, it's crazy. But no, I brought the best slide player that I know and that, you know, that a lot of people know, but he's absolutely incredible. So Mike, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about what slide were we using in the intro there?
Yeah, this is basically a core seed and bottle replica.
And so that's the D'Addario one.
Yeah, this is D'Addario's version of it. This sort of came from, it was actually, the legend is Dwayne Allman. He was sick. This was early 70s, and he had a cold or whatever. And he was laid up in bed, and he was taking Coricidin, which is a cold medicine back then. But he was listening to a Taj Mahal record, actually Taj Mahal's version of Statesboro Blues, which had Slide on it. And so he dumped out the pills from the bottle, and he started trying to find those sounds. And so that kind of became like a standard for a lot of players to use these Coricidin bottles or the replicas of them now.
Did they have to cut it, or did the bottle just look like that?
The bottle looked like this. There was a seam in it. The originals had I've actually played some of the originals, and it had a seam in it, which makes it worse for slide, because if the seam hit the strings, it would get kind of scratchy. So the replicas are actually technically better just because they're smooth. And
but literally it was just like a little medicine bottle like this with a top
on it. Yeah.
So this is D'Addario's version of it.
Yep.
And you've never used that before until
I haven't.
Until
no,
right now.
It feels great. It feels really natural. The big thing with the bottle is just sort of, there's wiggle room for the finger, and I usually keep my finger bent about like that. And that's kind of what's unique about the Coricidin bottle replicas, is kind of that finger formation, I think.
Let's go to one of the metal ones,
sure.
Just so we can hear
so
the tonal differences.
Metal tends to be a little bit brighter. Here, I mean, this one actually has a really smooth coating on it, so it doesn't have some of the scratchiness you sometimes get with metal slides. Overall, definitely a little bit brighter. You can hear it's ringing a little bit.
Is it a little heavier, so you get a different feel?
Yeah, this one actually is very heavy, so it's... Yeah, and usually the trade-off with weight is between sustain and agility, basically. So
light, quicker agility.
You can move around faster, but there's less sustain. So a heavy slide, the note's going to sustain longer. You know, those notes are really going to ring for a long time, but it's heavier, so it's harder to do faster runs, you know. It's a little bit harder than with a lighter glass slide. So yeah, that's generally the trade-off. When you go lighter, you can move around faster, but the sustain is not always there. So this is a standard kind of blues thing. Let's try that with the glass. So the glass is just like a little bit warmer, a little bit lighter feeling, just in terms of how you can move around with it.
Now, when you're playing with a band, would you maybe not as often emphasize the open string along with the line, or does it?
Yeah, I mean, if the bass player is doing that or the organ player, then you don't need the love drum. But when you're playing by yourself, it kind of helps to have the drone going down below so you can bounce off of it. But try that with the metal. Yeah, so similar, but there's just some differences in the weighting and how you can kind of move in and out of the notes for sure.
What was the first slide you learned on?
I think the first one I ever got was a metal slide. It was lighter than this and smaller, and I was playing on I think a Strat at that time. I think a lot of Strat players tend to use metal slides. I know Bonnie Raitt has that kind of characteristic, middle position metal slides.
What made you want to get into slide?
It was really the first guy I ever heard play slide, I think, was Robert Randolph, actually.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that Sacred Steel sound. And then I started listening to the Allman Brothers and Derek Trucks and Duane Allman and going back to Elmore James and guys like that. The light bulb moment for me was like, oh, these guys are making the guitar sound like singers, which was really what my ear was always first drawn to, is great singers, Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles and Donny Hathaway, people like that. So then when I heard Robert Randolph do that first, where it's like, oh, this sounds like
a female gospel singer. Yeah.
It's kind of ironic as a guitar player. Like most of what I do on the guitar is try and get it to not sound like a guitar.
Of course.
But it's like trying to bring out the vocal sounds. I mean, you can do it a little bit. You can get at some of the.
Does that feel weird to you?
I mean, you can kind of
like, well, this slide feels real soft and gushy.
You can kind of move around in the same way and get those single string melodies, but it doesn't have the microtonality to it still of like, like there's just that space. That's what great vocalists can really bring out, and that's what the slide enables you to do. There's a lot of synergy between learning to be a singer and learning to be a slide player, because it really is just trying to sing through the guitar. Another thing you learn a lot as a singer is like you're constantly modulating your volume, and with traditional guitar playing you can't really do that. I mean, you can modify how hard you hit a string, but once it's ringing, it's kind of pretty dynamically flat, and that's why I use a volume pedal, because it lets me come in and out a lot more. So like if a singer, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of dynamic, like it comes in louder and then tails off, and with the volume pedal you can kind of get at those things. It lets you mimic that dynamic emulation that you can do as a singer.
This is what I would think of when I first started playing guitar, and I would go into the store and just look. That was kind of like what they all looked like, I feel.
Yeah, this is kind of a standard glass slide. It's shorter, a little bit lighter. The walls are still thick, which helps with the sustain in the tone. Yeah, so this is a lot lighter, so I can move around much faster with this compared to the metal slides.
Prefer your Chorus-Eden just because you use it so much?
It's definitely different. I'm comfortable with the one I use all the time, obviously, but it just brings out different things in your playing, I think.
Like if you handed me a different pick,
you would start playing a little bit
differently. Yet I've used this one for 20,000 hours. Yeah. You give me another one, it's not going to matter if it's a better pick or a worse pick. Right. It's going to like feel different.
It's just a matter of what's comfortable, what you're used to. But I think it's like just having a new instrument in your hands too. It makes you play a little bit differently.
So that was basically our
this is just a little bit
standard
lighter,
issue.
And like I was saying, I think it does affect the way you play. When you pick up a lighter slide, you're gonna play a little bit faster. If this one's in your hand, you can play the same progression, but I'm probably gonna. Yeah, so it kind of, this made me just want to naturally play a little bit slower, milk each note a little bit more. I kind of think of it the difference between like Mahalia Jackson and Aretha Franklin. You know, Aretha Franklin's a little bit faster, more virtuosic, more sort of all over the place, but Mahalia is a little bit slower, but really puts a lot into each note.
Well, awesome. So we got one more slide to check out.
Yeah.
And this is actually Rich Robinson's signature slide with D'Addario.
Yeah, what's interesting about this one is it's actually tapered. So on this side, the wall is thinner, and on this side it's thicker, and that, I guess, makes your finger fit a little bit more comfortably into it. So it's more locked in at the front.
So that's like way heavier than the other
Very
ones.
heavy, yeah. I've never played a slide anywhere close to this heavy. You can't move around very quickly with something this heavy, but the sustain and the tone is really good.
So what we learned is there are different slides, and if you're a really good slide player like Mike, you're going to make them sound all good, but obviously you have the ones that you prefer. Now, I noticed that the brass one is super heavy, and that's, as we learned, it's more for overdrive and distorted riffs, whereas that Chorus-Eden bottle is straight from the lineage of the Allman Brothers.
Yep.
And so you can pick and choose from either one.
Yeah, I think different slides are just suited to different styles of playing and different sounds, and picking up different slides definitely makes you play differently too.
All right, I just want to thank Mike Gannon again. You guys check all his stuff out, social media. You do your own music, you produce. We met through an awesome event called the Pitch Meeting and the Pitch Meeting Band. So much talent in that here in Nashville, Tennessee. So please check out Mike Gannon, support Mike Gannon. MP Gannon on Instagram. And then also, once again, huge shout out and huge thank you to D'Addario for sponsoring this video, but also just being a great partner. They've been so cool. They've treated me so well. So I really appreciate them. They make obviously great strings, but don't forget that they make other awesome products like these slides. Thanks again for watching. Thanks, Mike. See you guys later.